Hey, Cam here. Welcome back for another week of videos, insights into our Steel Mentra. And I give you some of the lessons learned and things that you can apply to your life to help you live a better life and get more stuff done. And one of the things that I think is really interesting is this idea of getting one thing done a day. It's something I think, been thrown around by a lot of different people. We were talking about it the other day on a Steel Dads call, and I think we came to a really great nugget of a path forward for a lot of folks out there. So I thought it'd be a really good thing to share with y'all. The fundamental piece to start off with here is it comes down to knowing yourself. So this process I'm going to talk through does not work for everybody. I wouldn't expect it to. Everyone has their own preferences, right? There's a reason they make chocolate and vanilla ice cream, right? But when it comes to performance, you have to know yourself. That's the most important piece to optimizing your performance, optimizing your systems. You have to know yourself, because if you start building a system that fits someone else, you hear me talking, like, gosh, Camden, that sounds great, and you copy my system, that might work for me. It's not going to work for you. You're going to have to customize it. You're going to have to understand more about yourself and why you are a certain way, why you want things to be a certain way, what kind of systems you need so that you actually respond to the system. The best systems are the ones that we actually use. So you have to make sure you customize that system to fit yourself. So with that, this idea of doing one thing a day, it doesn't work if you are somebody who tends to be on the lazier end of the spectrum. This came from a conversation with some other high performers, guys who are very goal motivated, hold themselves to a high standard, right? If you're on that end of the spectrum, you're on the high performer end of the spectrum, what tends to happen is that we want to overload our day. We hold ourselves to a high standard, like I said, but often it can be too high of a standard. We're putting too much pressure on ourselves. We're trying to put too many things in the day. We have too high of expectations. And, that's not the end of the world, but it can also put you in a pretty stressful place. If you continue to line up a bunch of things, like, I need to get all of this stuff done tomorrow, and then you don't get it done, that can lead to a negative headspace there. At the same time, when we set up all those different goals, if we're setting them up in an unrealistic way, then we're really measuring ourselves up against something unrealistic. So we're creating that negativity for no real reason. This is that we talk about like should and shouldn't create that guilt cycle. This is a very similar type of mechanism here. We feel like we should get all of these things done, so we plan our day to be as optimal as possible with these really high expectations, assuming there will be no distractions, nothing else like that. And what happens is, of course, we get distracted. Of course, things take longer than they need to. Of course, things pop up, and the day starts to not fall apart, but your schedule falls apart. And you still may get 70-80% of the things done, but because you're measuring yourself up against that higher standard, you're disappointed that you didn't get that 100%, right? So this is kind of attacking it from the other direction here. By understanding that you're on this end of the spectrum as a high performer, you tend to overload things. What this trick is all about is resetting it and coming from this end of the spectrum, talking about doing one thing a day. It goes back to priorities. When we don't have, or when everything is a priority, nothing is a priority, right? When we're trying to get everything done in a day, we don't really have a clear guiding light for that day. What happens is that we have all of these things that we need to get done, and we're thinking about checking things off our to-do list. We don't really have an intentional outcome necessarily for that day. That's where this plays into, is we have a priority, a clear number one priority that we're working towards for this day. And that goes into everything you're doing, whether you take this on a daily scale or a week or any sort of time frame. What is your number one priority? What is the thing that you have to get done in order to move forward? Now, this doesn't mean that other things aren't important. Like, take the example, I love this, of life categories. When we talk about life categories, there's family. That's number one priority for a lot of people. That being said, of course, work is a huge priority because you have to pay for the roof to keep over your family's head, right? You got to pay that mortgage, different things like that. We have things that are high priority, but that doesn't mean they're number one. You have to have that clear hierarchy breaking out what those priorities are. And what it does by having those priorities is it gives you a clear thing to work towards, a clear finish line, like, hey, I got this thing done. That was my one thing that I need to get done today. And then, because we're high performers, again, going back to that spectrum of performance, when you're a high performer, when you get that one thing done, are you just going to go, all right, that's it for the day. I'm going home and time to hang out. I am done for the day. No, of course not. You're going to find other things to do because you got extra time in the schedule. So by understanding that you are going to tend to look for work, you can build that into your schedule there. So we're focusing on our one main priority, but as long as we follow this next principle right here of looking for work, then no matter what, we are going to have a productive day, even though we're only getting one thing done. Because that's what, the perfectionist, the high performer will look at this concept, and we had this conversation in that Steel Dads call, talking about what is the one thing you need to get done, and you could feel each one of us go, oh, but I have lots of things to get done, and it's like, yes, that is true. There's lots of things we need to get done, but what's the number one priority? And by isolating it down to a number one priority, it helps you to see much more clearly with the picture of what's going on. It's no longer, I have to get all this stuff done. I got to get this thing done. And then guess what? Once you finish that, like we said, then we look for work. Well, after I get this thing done, what's my next job? Okay, I'm going to go for number 2, number 3, number 4. I'm going to keep going down that list. And hey, you can go back to your to-do list in that kind of a way, but by measuring yourself off of the one priority for the day, you set a clear precedent of what you're working towards. You make sure you get that big thing done that is going to give you the most momentum forward, right? And then by having that one thing, you're able to build other stuff on top of it, right? Because it really does go back to just our habits here. And when we're building our habits, it's not necessarily how good the thing you're doing is, it's how good you are at doing the thing. There we go. I wish I would have delivered that better. It's how good you are at doing the thing consistently, right? Consistency is the key for the habits. Once you establish a habit of whatever that habit is, you can go and start moving towards adding more things to it, right? One of my favorite examples is this. I got from a workout coach once. Guy owned a bunch of gyms and was on a coaching call with him once. We were talking, and he mentioned this interesting thing that he does, which is he goes and talks to people and he gets them involved. And he's like, look, you want to get back in the gym? What is one of the biggest problems when people try to get back in the gym? It tends to be that they get excited, overwork themselves, and they get too sore and they don't come back, right? And so he would put a limit on the amount of time that people would be able to come to the gym. And he'd be, hey, meet me tomorrow, 8 a.m. You go in, you're going to warm up, and it's like, all right, time to go home. See you tomorrow. And you build that habit, and you're like itching to do more, but you're limiting yourself, or he is limiting you rather, to just getting that 15 minutes done each time. Then after you do that 15 minutes, you start building that habit a little bit. Now we can go to 20, we can go to 30. You can make the workout bigger, and it allows you to flex in that extra stuff when you want to, right? So you build out that habit. You are used to going to the gym, so now it's easy to make the workout harder, right? You already did the hard thing, which is going in the first place, right? This is the same for what we're talking about here. We want to build out the habit of having this number one priority, getting this number one thing done. Then from there, we can adjust how exactly we want to go about the rest of our day. We can layer other things on top of it, but we're working the muscle memory of getting that one thing done a day. So first thing is getting one thing done a day. Because I'm going to take this out, and believe it or not, this thing is going to involve doing more things, like I already kind of hinted at. But the first thing is getting that one thing done a day. This is the best example for this is like when you're wrapping up your day, you're planning your next day, looking at some of your goals, priorities for the week, your schedule, what calls you have, those kind of things there. You take a moment and say, okay, what is my number one priority for work tomorrow? Or my number one priority for anything for that matter. But what is my number one priority tomorrow? It's like, okay, hey, I have to go and record a video. I have to go and get on this really important sales call. I have to write my blog post for next week, whatever it is, right? There may be one thing that is like, I have to get this done, whether it's something you tend to procrastinate or not. It is a priority that needs to get done in order to move you forward. So it makes it your number one priority. So you say, okay, here is my one thing for the day, and I'm going to attack it. Then, of course, when you're for most of those things, especially the ones that we procrastinate and make them scarier than we need to, what happens is that we wind up with a task that doesn't take near as long as we thought it would. And so what happens? We get a bunch of time left in our day. And so we say, hey, I have to get this thing tomorrow. It's super important, super important. Guess what? You get it done by 9:30. Great. I got a whole day. I can fill in with all this other stuff on my to-do list, all these other ideas, right? You can flex in all that other stuff. And you have the momentum of already having your number one priority out of the way. So it's easy to knock down the rest of the targets as you keep moving. So once you understand that piece, there's another angle for it you can take, which is one priority a week. And this, if you're doing this, I'm guessing it's going to be something much larger. It may be like I make the comment of, recording a video for work, right? Like what I'm doing here. So if that's one task right there, then yeah, that's a task for the day. Prepping the video, editing, uploading, doing social media content, all this other kind of stuff. Okay, now it is a thing for the week. That is my one thing that is a priority for the week. Same kind of thing goes if you have that really important sales call. If you have a huge opportunity with that sales call, then there's going to be prep happening on other days, building into that singular act, right? Building into that one thing. So that may be your one thing for the week. This also goes, to zoom out a little bit, the one thing a day, one thing a week, this also goes into mindset things as well. It could be like I look at a rugby event and I say, look, I want to be calm during this. I want to be calm and confident. Okay, that is my priority for the day. I'm not thinking I have to have the best ability of doing these X, Y, Z. It's like, no, my number one priority today is to be a calm and confident coach. Great, that's a priority. You could do the same kind of thing going into your day. Like, look, no matter what happens, no matter how many people come knocking on my office door, no matter how many people try to distract me, I'm going to be kind, I'm going to be pleasant, and I'm going to stay focused, right? I'm going to get back to what I'm doing and not let those people distract me, but I'm also not going to take it out on them because it's not their fault. You can have a mentality as your one thing for that day. And by focusing on that mentality, what happens is everything else kind of tends to fall into place. That's the interesting thing as you go through and kind of follow this philosophy, is even though you're only focusing on one thing, everything else tends to fall into place. This is the common example that we talked about on the Steel Dads call, was how many of us would have this priority of like working out. And it's something that's like, yeah, there's health benefits and these kind of things. But when you look in the super short term, it doesn't seem to add that much. It looks like it, just taking away time from work, time for the family, chores, those kind of things. But when you make it a priority over and over and over again, what happens is you have more energy, you're feeling better. And through this kind of X factor that you might not necessarily be able to completely connect, you're doing better afterwards. You're getting more things done by focusing on that one thing. And it's very true with a mentality piece as well. If you go through, and I think this is a great example, coaches all the time will say things like, go have fun out there. And it sounds like a cliche and it sounds like BS, but truthfully, there is something to focus on having fun. And having fun is playing the game and playing the game well. No one's idea is fun is playing a shitty game of rugby, right? So you want to play well. So that's part of the idea of fun. It kind of builds into that. By focusing on fun, you could get a bunch of the other things. Is it fun to get run over by somebody? No. So even though I'm focusing on fun, I'm still going to get low in my tackle, right? Because it's not very fun to get run over. That's kind of a funny example there, but it is really true. By focusing on a mentality, a mindset piece overarching with everything, you can get a great outcome, even though you're not focusing on like one specific task, right? The next piece I think adds a even better layer to this, is your life categories. And actually, life category for the notes there. But as you're thinking about this and as you start experimenting with this, just like I said with the habit, talking about going to the gym, it's really important that you don't bite off too much at once, because then you wind up just using a to-do list and thinking that you're using my system here. You won't be. What you have to do is kind of ramp it up just like this. Have your one thing a day. Have your one thing a week. Have it broken down like that. Then you could start branching out into your life categories, having one thing per life category per day or per week. What is your focus with that? And like we were joking on the Steel Dads call, hey, sometimes for that family life category, the focus is surviving. And that is my one thing for the day, is just to make it through the day and to try to help people as much as I can along the way. That's a pretty good goal sometimes. But when you break it down like that, you can have your one priority in each of your different life categories. So I can look at my week and say, hey, here's how I'm going to be great just for rugby. Here's my one thing I really need to get done to move us forward. I really need to watch a bunch of film this week in scout teams. Cool. That's my one thing moving forward. For work, I really need to start writing on a LinkedIn article or something like that. It's like, okay, hey, cool. That's my big priority for this week, because I want to be writing. Writing is my big thing for this week. Family side, then it's like, hey, I want to maintain the chaos, help clean things, and not necessarily do some big thing, but just help everything move along. Okay, hey, that's my one goal. Just help everything kind of move along there. For my Renaissance man category, which is my fourth life category there, then it could be something like, hey, I want to be mindful throughout the week. I want to be intentional. Anything in that mindset space, right, where it is the, touching into just everything, that's my catch-all life category, which is why it works like that. But by breaking it down per life category, now you've taken that one thing and you've amplified it into all these different areas of your life. So that same system that's working really well for you in your business, it's now working really well for you on the side with your hobbies or with your family, right? You're able to implement the same system there. The last piece after your life category is just adding in multiple things, because that's the truth with this. You can have more things, you just have to be careful that you're not stepping into just a full-on to-do list, right? And I'm a to-do list guy, don't get me wrong. As soon as I'm done here, I'm going to erase this and have my to-do list back up there. But when we have our to-do list and our one thing, we need to keep them separate, because once we just start falling into to-do list mode, we stop seeing our priorities. We stop seeing what's most important to us, and therefore our time gets a lot messier. We get confused on how we should spend our time, what that number one time priority is. And so really, this just gives you the framework to have that number one priority. And keep in mind, even if you do want to add multiple things as you're moving forward, the key really is that once you finish one thing, there's still going to be others. You're still going to have more stuff that you can do afterwards. No one's going to make you sit down and stop working just because you got your one thing done. Now, that all being said, the great thing with this is what I would call a clear finish line. Now, even though you're probably going to get more stuff done, like I said, because we want to get more things done. If I have 5 more hours of my day, I'm going to get 5 more hours of stuff done, or at least 3.5 or so. But we have that drive that's going to keep us finding more and more and more. But the really nice thing is we have a clear finish line with our number one priority, number one priority for each life category, whatever it is, right? When we're goal driven, when we are people who want to get everything done on the to-do list, when we're high performers like that, you tend to fall into the bit of this trap that I always talk about in terms of, I always love my farm example here. There's always work to be done on the farm. So when the hell should I go to bed? If there's always work to be done, when do I stop? And that's the problem when you follow just that to-do list and you're looking at all these you're looking at this long list of things and all this stuff that needs to get done eventually, whether it's today or tomorrow, it's hard to say, but you're looking at all this different stuff that needs to get done. It's really hard to say when your day is done. And then when your day is done, it's really easy to measure yourself up against the other things that you got wrong. You had 100 things in your to-do list, you did 70 of them. Okay, well, you got 30 things wrong. It's really easy to think about those 30 things the rest of the night and kind of screw you up for the next day and put you in this negative headspace, all that kind of stuff. It comes to energy levels. But with your priorities, you have one thing. Hey, did I do my one thing today? Yes. Okay, I did it. Now, I could still look honestly and be, hey, is there more stuff I could have gotten done and all that? I can have an honest conversation about my productivity, but it gives me something I can fall back to of like, hey, those are my priorities and I got them done. And I think that's a really important piece that helps a lot of high performers to stay positive as they're working through things, because it's far too often that we do focus on those 30 things we didn't do rather than the 70 things that we did, or the number one priority that we did do, which is the most important thing to move me forward, or the thing from each life category that was most important to me to move forward in each of those areas. So that's how that one thing a day can really help you to, one, get a lot more than one thing done a day, but two, it can help you with your mindset piece of not feeling like you're not getting enough done, not feeling that stress of, oh, I should be doing more, instead of focusing what that number one priority is, and then, hey, let things fall for where they are from after that, and most of the time you're going to get a lot of good other stuff done along the way after you get that number one priority out of the way. So if you enjoyed this video, go check out more about Steel Mint Tribe at 10xyourteam.net, and you can learn some more about what we're doing. And you can join us and join us on our other calls like Steel Dads and Hard Chargers, where we talk about lots of things just like this and the importance of productivity while also keeping our heads on straight, not going crazy while we're being productive, because what's the point in that, right? We want to be productive and also keep our heads on straight. So guys, thanks for watching on this. If you learned something, let me know in the comments down below, or join us in the Steel Mint Tribe at 10xyourteam.net. Thanks again.